Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ether Hub. I'm Simon, bringing you another Magic the Gathering story. We're wrapping up the main story of Crimson Vow with only 2 videos left in this standard arc. This is it, the final push of our heroes to deal with the Eternal Night of Innistrad, to bring justice to the new Lord of Darkness, Olivia Voldaren, and for Soren Markov to finally deal with his granddaddy issues. In our last episode, which you can find linked on your screen right now or in the description below, we followed as the werewolf planeswalker Arlinn chased after her prey, the perpetrator of this gaudy affair, Olivia Voldaren. The vampire lord had stolen a relic known as the Moonsilver Key, which hindered their efforts to bring back the dawn to Innistrad. Though, when finally confronted, Olivia goaded Arlinn and struck a near-fatal blow. Now, our story continues as our heroes support a struggling Innistrad. Soren, coming to terms with Edgar's total corruption, lurches from melancholy to action, and old enemies return as powerful allies. This is Chapter 12 of Crimson Vow's story, written by K. Arsenault Rivera, Till Death Do Us Part. Remember, if you enjoy these videos and want to support our content, please consider hitting that like button and becoming a subscriber. We're really close to 100,000 people in the Vorthos army, guys, and with your help, we can achieve that goal. And now, let's get back to the lore. Law is the assertion of order over chaos. You cannot have one without the other. Every day of Adeline's training made that clear to her. Cathars will always need to dispense justice because chaos is the natural state of the world. Deep in the belly of the beast, surrounded by a maelstrom of entropy, that is when the Cathar should feel most comfortable, as that is when they're needed most. That's what they say, anyway. Adeline's beginning to wonder how much of what she's taught was wishful thinking. There are people who need my help, she thought. And that became her only thought, the only thing that drove her on through the night, the only thing that kept her breathing. A sacred oath to protect the people of Innistrad lent her sword arm strength, even when her flesh grew weary. Chandra's right at home in the chaos. As a vampire's claw rakes across Adeline's shield, Chandra is there, bounding up onto a table to get a better angle. Their eyes link over the vampire's shoulder. Somehow, despite the screams, despite the obscenities, despite the death grunts around them, Chandra's smirking. A pillar of flame consumes the vampire. Only a pile of ash remains of the woman, her jewelry sitting prettily atop it. Adeline lets out a breath. Chandra grins. Hammer and anvil works pretty, huh? Her words cut off abruptly when Adeline pulls her close and raises her shield just in time. A wine bottle shatters against hardwood and steel. Red slicks the holy symbol staring back at their assailant, and red too paints Adeline's helmet as the excess spills over. Guess that makes me the anvil, Adeline says. A quick squeeze around her waist, hardly palpable in the armor, signals Chandra's thanks. Hey, don't sound so down. We've got this! Adeline draws away. A thrall emerges from the melee, armed with a candelabra. Chandra blasts him with fire about a second before he makes contact, the candelabra clattering to the ground. Flames lick at the table runners, which is bad, given how many people have taken to duels atop the tables. There must be a dozen of them going on at least, and not all of them pit humans against vampires. It seems some of the bloodsuckers are taking the opportunity to settle old debts. In the bare moment Adeline spends glancing at them, she watches a well-dressed woman skewer a beautiful man before drawing him into a kiss. The tip of her blade juts from his back. He's smiling, somehow. Everywhere she looks, it's like this. 2 mounted Cathars are joined by a youth riding a trained pig. All 3 of them try to take on a Falkenrath, flushed with fresh blood. There's a demon swinging a column at a group of farmers, and Sigarda, the Archangel, is there to catch it. A guard cuts the head clean from a warrior's shoulders, tossing it to a blood-mouthed child, who catches it from the air like a well-trained dog. Red gushes across the throat of the guard. He falls, bleeding his stolen blood onto the slick marble floor. Behind him, a violet-wreathed Kaya withdraws her knife. Any sign of Arlinn? Adeline asks. Kaya shakes her head. We hold the line. Kaya, in case you haven't seen, it's less of a line here and more of a... Chandra starts. She stops, again, this time because a column's toppling over towards all three of them. Adeline rushes to save her, and manages it. If only because the column hovers suspended in its trajectory for a full second. The time mages work, no doubt. Chandra has powerful friends indeed. Nice catch, Adeline. I agree, Teferi says. He ducks an oncoming axe swing, tapping his staff against the guard's flank. The guard freezes in place long enough for a Cathar to finish the job. Everyone's scattering. We can't keep this up for long. Arlen knows what she's doing, Kaya says. She's going to finish the job. Avacyn has always fought with her sisters at her side. We shouldn't leave her alone, Adeline says. She needs help. Can't spare anyone, Chandra says. We have company. And so they do. A dozen burly vampire guards, shields linked, marching straight toward them. A tall order at the best of times. Chandra sends out a gout of flame. Their hesitation lasts only an instant. Adeline sinks into her fighting stance. Law is the assertion of order over chaos. A Cathar is most needed in the Maelstrom. One of the guards hurls a javelin. Adeline raises her shield. Impact never comes. A massive wolf lunges before them. The javelin bounces right off it, unable to pierce the dense muscle at its flank. The wolf turns toward the vampires. The growl that leaves its throat is so low Adeline feels it rumbling in her lungs. One paw beats the marble floor. Then, a howl. 4 more wolves, these normally sized, leap in through the windows, and they aren't the only ones. There must be dozens of wolves pouring in now, some big as boulders, from the windows and the open gates. But why? Why are they here? Not long ago, the wolves tore through civilians during the Harvestide massacre. Why save them? Did you guys invite them? Chandra asks. As if to answer, the largest of the wolves turns toward them. An arm juts from its great jaws. Adeline knows those scars. It's Tovolar. Are you here to help? Teferi asks. The wolf nods. Kaya points out a particular door. She went that way, she says. Tovolar's gone the second she's done talking, bounding over the remains of the chandelier towards Arlen. During the travails, it was hard to know who was friend and who was foe. The lines got blurred. People you knew all your life burst into tendrils and carapaces. This isn't as bad as the travails, but all the same, Adeline's not sure what to make of the wolf, either. Soren Markov is well familiar with the dark. For thousands of years, darkness had been his best companion. And now, sinking into a pit of blood, he realizes it might be the only companion he has left. The other planeswalkers from before, dead, or gone, or shadows of their former selves. Nahiri, a girl he once trusted, a woman who locked him in stone and forced him to watch the world crumble. Avacyn, his most treasured creation. All of his hopes for the future in a single perfect frame, unmaking her hurt. Truly hurt. Even vampiric powers won't heal the wound in his heart. And now, blood rushes against his eyelids. If he opens his mouth, there'll be plenty to drink, plenty to give him strength. But if he does pull himself out of here, what's left? 7,000 years of existence settle against his body. He's sinking further down into the sanguine depths. What's left? He strains to think. There must be something. People such as him see the greater image, not the smaller one. His grandfather taught him that. His grandfather, who even now fought for the dreadful privilege of marrying Olivia Voldaren. His grandfather, who hurled him here for the same reason. All of the wounds Soren bore, Edgar had inflicted the first. And still, Soren had loved him for thousands of years. Had that been part of his grandfather's plans too? To use Soren only when convenient? To indulge all those long conversations, as if indulging a child's tea party? The grander picture, not the smaller. Yes, he can see it now. Soren's chest aches. He opens his mouth. Blood. Sweet, sticky, intoxicating as wine, pours in. Sinew weaves itself back together, bones crack into place, wounds stitch shut. His muscles swell with stolen vigor. His vigor. They thought this cellar would drown him, but it's only made him stronger. Soren begins to climb. It takes longer than he'd like. With every reach of his hand, his body continues to heal itself, continues to stitch itself back together. He grunts, but he throws himself fully to the work, to the effort, and when he crashes the lip of the pit, there is no longer any place for doubt within him. The ballroom. That is where his grandfather, Edgar, has gone. One step after another. It is a predator's slink that propels him through the halls of the Sanguinatorium, a predator's nose that guides him through the muttering corridors, a predator's instinct to pick up a greatsword along the way. The sounds come to him before long, the clatter of metal, the groans of the dying, the beating of an angel's wings, each one infuriating. Infuriating too, the howl of wolves on Voldaren lands. Well, it would have been infuriating days ago. Now a grim satisfaction comes over him. For millennia, the vampires have plotted and schemed, torn out throats and staked hearts just for the barest taste of more power. It is only natural that the wolves, true pack animals, have come to rout them. It occurs to him that he has family in that ballroom, and it occurs to him distantly, like a whisper through padded cloth, that he no longer cares. Soren steps into the maelstrom, an arrow whistles over his shoulder. He catches it, driving it into the throat of an oncoming Voldaren guard. The man struggles to breathe. Soren twists the arrow shaft. Shh. Quiet, he says. The man collapses when Soren pulls the arrow away. Soren doesn't much care. Already he's surveying the room for Edgar. Olivia hardly matters anymore. She might be the one who arranged the wedding, but Edgar agreed to it. Edgar fought for it. Edgar cast away his own grandson for something as simple, as disposable, as fleeting, as power. He is looking for Edgar. There, rounding on Teferi and his companions, flanked by Markov duelists, Edgar wields his greatsword like a much younger man, cackling with glee. Has he always seemed so decrepit? His flesh so sullen, his eyes so beady. There are those who try to get between Soren and Edgar, a foolish way to stamp their own death warrants. Limbs fall from them like leaves from autumn branches. Soren marches on. Edgar swings on Teferi. The Time Mage slows the blow down, but only so much. He barely manages to block. The Cathar takes on two of the duelists herself. The Pyromancer's flames lick at Edgar's fine clothes. Two Geists fade into existence in time to deal killing blows to the duelists. The tide is turning. Edgar must be able to feel it as easily as Soren does. The face Soren once thought beatific and wise wrenches in disgust. You again? Soren's attack is too quick for the humans to follow, and Edgar's parry just the same. Swords meet again and again, hands a blur, sparks flying around them. Soren's onslaught is vicious, unrelenting, uninterested in peace or parley. Edgar might be powerful, but the blade has long since been Soren's favored area of study. Those who come to Edgar's aid also find swift ends. Soren hasn't the mind to keep track of it beyond the most passing sense, but he knows the others are keeping them at bay. In the end, it is Edgar who falls from the rumble first, scrambling backward, his sword clattering to the ground like a toy. Soren, he says, you have to understand. Soren rests the tip of his borrowed sword at the base of Edgar's throat. I understand, Edgar. The larger picture, not the smaller. Sacrifices. Power. I understand perfectly now what you think of me. And he understands too how easy it would be to kill the man here. A simple flick of his wrist is all it would take. A moment's resistance, a dying gasp, that would be all. Yet, something stays his hand. Perhaps the unseen hand of an angel long gone. Soren scowls. Go. Get out of my sight. For all his blustering, for all his power, Edgar doesn't need to be told twice. Like a frightened cat, he scampers away. Where he's going is no concern of Soren's. Instead, his eyes remain on the spot where his grandfather had just been, the place where he might have died. Are you all right? The pyromancer, probably. He's surprised at the concern in her voice. She never seemed to like him. Yes, he lies. Soren wipes his blade clean. When at last he looks up, he sees the others are giving him a wide berth. Vampire corpses litter the floor like the dregs of a feast. Soren, I know that must have been hard for you, but you did the right thing, says Teferi. Soren wants to glare at him. How can he know? How can he judge? And yet it occurs to him, Teferi too is old. Teferi too has known loss, has seen things beyond his imagining. And the others might be shorter lived, but there is something that they all understand about one another inherently. A restlessness, a wanderlust. Thank you. It is all he can think to say. Arlencourt dreams of forests. She dreams of boughs beneath her padded feet, of autumn leaves falling in lazy circles around her, of the wind through her fur. Boulder and Patience run shoulder to shoulder with her. Streak bounds ahead. She is sure somehow that Redtooth is behind them. A pain in her chest. For as free as she feels with her wolves at her side, the truth is unavoidable. They've left. She is alone. Arlen. Wolves have many means of speaking, but her name has always eluded the maws of her closest companions. Arlen furrows her brow. She wants to slow, but her packmates keep her marching on. Arlen, it's time to hunt. It feels terrible, like her head's the cathedral bell, and the voice is the hammer. She wants to stop. But then, a warmth. Something at her side, solid, its heart beating in a rapid tattoo. Warmth against her face. A familiar scent. The stag can wait. When she opens her eyes, Tovolar is the first thing she sees, still bearing the wounds from their last encounter. The softness of his expression throws his powerful body into relief. You're here? She asks. You called for aid, comes the answer, roughly shaped from his muzzle. And it's when she stirs that she realizes they're not alone. Boulder's at her side too. They all are. Relief and joy overtake the pain of her injuries as she throws her arms around them. Her pack. And they are just as eager to see her too, lapping at her face, bopping her with their noses. But the embrace isn't meant to last long. With joy comes clarity, and with clarity comes memory. Olivia's the one who hurt her like this, and Olivia's the one with the Moonsilver key. Boulder and Patience help her to her feet. She shifts, again, knowing her human nose will do her no favors here, nor will her human healing. She needs the wolf. Yet, there's one thing nagging at her too, the near sheepish rounding of Tovolar's shoulders. Tovolar, she says, this doesn't change anything between us. What you did. Tonight, we settle this, he says. Words are hard to form in that shape, but it isn't as if Tovolar can change as easily as she can. Afterward, come find me. We'll settle it like packmates. Arlen's skin crawls. Tovolar isn't her pack. These three are, but it'll have to do for now, won't it? The Voldarans gaining absolute control over the other vampires, and the angels, wouldn't be good for the wolves either. She doesn't dignify him with a response. Olivia's scent is thick in this place, her blood upon the marble fresh and enticing. It'll be easy enough to track her down. Arlen doesn't need to tell Tovolar to follow. She doesn't need to tell the wolves either. Together the five of them run through the halls of Voldaran Manor, staggered two at a time, blood rushing in their ears. It hurts, of course it does, but that's nothing compared to what'll happen if Olivia gains control over all of Innistrad's angels. Her trail takes them not back toward the ballroom, but up somewhere higher. Stairs are hard to negotiate on 4 feet. They make do. There isn't room for anything else. It isn't long before Edgar's voice comes to them from down the hall. You promised you had everything under control. I did. All of this is, it's nonsense. The wolves round the corridor. There, at the end of the hall, surrounded by statues of herself, is Olivia Voldaran. Edgar Markov stands with her, covered in blood, his breathing ragged. Olivia's face is alight with fury. Her hand flies once more to her sword. Edgar reaches for her shoulder. "Olivia, it's over," he says. She bats his hand away. "You touch me only when I allow you to touch me!" The wolves draw near. Arlen comes to a stop before them, a rumble low in her throat. Olivia knows what she wants. Tovolar bites at Edgar, but Arlen's sharp bark cuts him off. This is Olivia's mess. She gets the chance to make it right. Arlen isn't sure what wins out in the end. Olivia's pique or her lack of patience. Maybe it's her own sniveling cowardice. But she drops the key. It clatters without much ceremony against the floor. "Have your little toy, if it matters so much to you," she sneers. Arlen wraps the key in a length of torn curtain and picks it up between her teeth. Olivia's already taken off through one of the windows. Edgar soon follows. Tovolar leaps up the side of the walls, scrambling to get at them, but he comes back down with only the tails of Edgar's coat caught between his jaws. He's glowering. She expected he would. No doubt he wanted to tear them apart and end this threat forever. Part of Arlen does too. But there'll be time for that later. As Arlen shifts back to human form, she catches Tovolar's eye. "If you've got a problem with how I run things, come find me later," she says. "Me and my pack will sort you out." And there you guys go, the semi-finale to the Crimson Vow storyline. We have only one episode left, and the future is looking rather bright for Innistrad. This story brought in a lot of major events from Midnight Hunt, like the reunion of Arlen and Tovolar. Now, don't ask me why Tovolar, after being stabbed in the back, literally by Arlen, decided to come to her aid now, only to have their relationship sort of hinge on, quote, dealing with it later. Like, come on. He organized a werewolf coup to kill as many humans as possible and wanted Eternal Night almost as badly as Olivia herself did. Why would he change his mind now? I guess it all comes down to werewolves hating vampires slightly more than humans. As a lot of the conflicts of Crimson Vow are settled in this story, I can't say I'm very satisfied with where a lot of the characters stand. Outside of the whole Tovolar thing, Edgar and Olivia are basically let go without any punishment. Their plan is foiled, but we don't have a resolution. Soren lets compassion win out, but how is that good for the bigger picture of Innistrad? And it still wasn't clear how captivated by Olivia's charm magic was Edgar exactly. They seem to have shared some details of their plans with one another, and if Soren truly believed at least some of his actions were forced by this charm magic, then why let him go? Why not capture him and find a cure? I'll save my final thoughts on Crimson Vow's story overall for the final chapter, which will be the final Friday Night Lore episode for the Crimson Vow cycle. So make sure you catch it this Friday. But for now, let me know what you think of the story and how things are wrapping up in the comment section below. Speaking of FNL, today we announced the winner of last week's Friday Night Lore video. The winner of the Edgar Charmed Groom card is... okay, let me get this name right. It is XBL General PC. I too wish we learned more of Edgar's past, and I'm also excited to explore more of that whole Eldrazi in the Moon situation. Congrats on winning FNL, friend. As always guys, I just wanted to thank you all for joining me today for this story, and remember, you can help support the Aether Hub by simply liking, subscribing, and sharing our videos. We are so close to 100,000 subscribers, and you can very well help us achieve that goal. Thank you all so much again, and until next time, see ya!